Well, welcome to Nauck's Vintage Records, Vintage Record Auction 72 Highlights Reel. Number 1, we are going to be showing records out of this catalog. Sorry to move it there on you, Jack. Jack is over there on the camera. Hey, Jack.
Hello.
We're going to be talking about records in auction number 72. This is an auction that closes on October the
29th.
29th, 2022. So if you happen to be watching this video before that date, you can go on our website, 78rpm.com, pull up this catalog as a PDF file and follow along, and perhaps bid on some things that you may be interested in. These catalogs we do once in the spring, once in the fall. It comprises records basically from the 1890s through the 1950s, 78 RPM, cylinder records, usually radio transcriptions, not so much of that in this particular catalog, just didn't have time to get to them. But always a lot of different formats, all kinds of genres, languages, you name it. There's all kinds of stuff in here. And we're going to be showing a lot of this stuff over the next, however long it goes, 2 or 3 hours. So let's get started. We're going to begin in the beginning of the catalog. And we're going to start with the Berliners. Berliners are 7-inch records recorded in the 1890s. And got several of them in the catalog. We're not going to be, obviously showing all of them, but a couple of things that are interesting. That probably wouldn't really be, but this is kind of cool. This is a Berliner by Estella Mann. This is lot number 10 in the catalog. Is that a good position for you, Jack?
That is just perfect.
Okay, so a couple of things to point out about this. You'll see an extra hole there in the label area. That is not something that is random. That is a drive hole that's been drilled into this record, professionally drilled into the record, to enable this record to be played on a Zonophone machine. Zonophones had a little drive pin in the turntable to keep the record from slipping while it was being played. So that can be considered, not exactly original to the record, but shortly thereafter. And so that is not considered to be a defect. This is a recording by Estella Mann. And that's interesting simply because she was also, at that time, an owner of the Lyric Phonograph Company, which was producing cylinder records. So here we have a recording on Berliner by somebody who's actually got her own gig going on in the recording industry, which is kind of interesting. We have another record coming up in this auction where the owner of the label is making a recording. This is an American Talking Machine Company record. These are very, very rare. This one is particularly interesting. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it says American Talking Machine Echord Disc. They kind of left the R off of the front of it. Very, very primitive things. And they didn't hold up well. Most of the ones that you're going to see, well, very seldom see these at all, but if you do, they're usually pretty well worn, and this one is no exception. It plays okay once you get past the first half of the record. Normally a record like that would find its way out into the reject pile in the garage, but that is a very rare record, even though we grade it P for poor, but it does play, and it has a $50 minimum bid. In really nice shape, that would be over $1,000. So that's just a couple old 7-inch things that we had to show you. We have in our 10-inch acoustic category a number of very nice Eldridge Johnson Victor Monarchs, pre-dog Monarchs. So we see the Victor Monarch record label. This is called a pre-dog variety, so that is before they were using Nipper in the phonograph, the logo on the record labels. And they come in 2 different varieties, basically. You have the Eldridge R. Johnson variety here, and a little bit later that was changed to say Victor Talking Machine. So you have this particular series in the catalog, which I think are all Eldridge Johnson records. So we got that one. Here's one by Dan W. Quinn. Another by Quinn. These are $25 or $50 minimum bid records.
If I wanted to bid on one of these, Kurt, what section of the catalog, like what number lot range would I be going
that's
for?
very good, Jack. Jack is here to keep me straight. I'm supposed to be calling off the lot numbers. Lot numbers up here in the corner, which you probably can't see. But these are in the 1 to 300 range or so. This is right in the beginning of the catalog. These are the acoustic records, and acoustic records are records which were recorded in front of a recording horn. So there was no electricity, no microphones, no amplifiers involved. That came around 1925 with your electrically recorded records. So these are all records which would have been recorded much earlier than that. These actually date from around the 1901 2 area, basically. Along with these records, at the end of the 10-inch acoustic section, we have the original wooden box that they came in. When I purchased these records, they were in this box, and this will be sold individually, and I'll just show that to you here. This has the playlist, record list here in the top of the lid, and most of the records that are on this list were in the box when I bought it. Not all of them. Some of them have probably gotten broken. As you can see, the labels on most all of these are really, really nice. And they play well, too. They generally grade in the V to V plus range. They're not super clean. But these both early Columbia and Victor records from this time period typically sound very good, even if they are well worn. And we'll play one or two of these on the Bit of Request show. And this also has the original little dividers inside of it. The first few dividers, the tabs are torn off. But all in all, a very nice little original 10-inch record box. Good shape, very solid. And somebody will enjoy winning that, and hopefully win a few of the records that went with it as well. Okay, let's see what's next here. So we're going to jump right into our label category. So every auction that we produce has an uncommon label section. And last auction we started auctioning off the Nauck Vintage Records collection of pre-war American commercially issued record labels. And we got as far as the end of the C's. We did A through C.
Discounting Columbia, because Columbia is going to be its own thing, because there were tons of label varieties for that.
Yeah, that's correct. We'll do Columbia and Victor by themselves. So we did A through C exclusive of Columbia, and this particular auction is D through G. And we're only doing the 10-inch. Later on we'll do 7s and other sizes. But just to keep it kind of simple and a little bit easier for us, we decided to kind of break it up by size. So this is going to take a few catalogs to get all the way through. So we're going to breeze through these pretty quickly. You've got a pause button, so if there's something you want to see particularly, you can certainly hit that.
And where do these lot numbers begin, Kurt?
These lot numbers are going to begin with lot number 460, it looks like. All right, so we're going to start with DNR. Okay, this is a Leeds Catlin product. DNR stood for double and reversible, because unlike your other Leeds products, these were two-sided discs, so that's kind of cool. Double-sided records came out commercially in 1908. And here's a blue label DNR. And then we go into Dandy. Dandy came in several different label colors. If you see anything, Jack, of significance in terms of the artist or content, you can holler. I'm not really looking at that right now.
Sure.
Again, these are in your catalog in the 400 series. This is lot number 465 for the black Dandy. And we move to Da Vega, 466. And then we have a whole series of Decas. We're not going to go through all those. You've seen plenty of Decas. Again, this is a pretty comprehensive collection of American label varieties. And so there's going to be an awful lot of records in the section that are very common, but are...
But they're all slightly different from each other.
Yeah, are illustrated simply because, you got to have an example of them, right? So here's a bunch of Decas that we don't need to look at.
Yeah, we tried our best in the catalog to put a little note in there as to how each record differs from the other, even if they've got basically the same label variety.
Here's a diamond record, which is an odd spindle issue. Those were made in Chicago to play on phonographs that had overly large spindles. So you get your machine pretty cheap, but then you could only play their records on it. So diamond label was a paste over. You can see how it's kind of started to tear off up here at the top. But this particular machine, or a particular record, would have played on a harmony sized spindle. Here is the same label with a standard size, so you can see the difference in the hole sizes here. And then here's a diamond record with a regular spindle. That probably was not really intended. Diamonds typically were all supposed to be odd spindle type records. There's a different diamond variety. Lot number 497. There's another diamond with a regular spindle hole. Here's something I've never seen before. This is lot number 499. The Diana record. So this again is just a dealer paste over. These fellas in Pittsburgh decided they wanted to have their own record label, and this was a pretty cheap way of doing it. Not terribly impressive, but there you have it.
Would that have been like in any way authorized by the records that they're pasting on?
I'm pretty sure that they wouldn't have had any idea that was going on. All right. That, of course, is a common record label pressed by Columbia, one of their budget brands, Diva, a big one and a little one. This is rare. Lot number 502 is the Dixie record. And this is record number 100. And it's possible, I'm not sure, but this may be the only issue on that label. So that's going to be a tough one to pick up. That has a $100 minimum bid. This is domestic. Lot number 503, blue wax, blue label, blue wax, orange label. Really pretty records. Domino came in a number of different label varieties. These are early 500 lot numbers. There's a small purple domino. This is a label variety was used for the Gable Company. If you're able to see that, it says manufactured exclusively for the John Gable Company. That was a jukebox outfit. And so those are kind of collectible by jukebox guys. Okay. You may be thinking, well, there are some D or E labels that he hasn't shown. How can he say that that's a great collection of American labels? Well, we're not showing Kitty records. We're not showing ethnic labels. We're not showing special pressings, one-offs, vanity records. We're only going with mainstream commercial labels. So the other stuff we do have, and again, that will be a future catalog. All right, so we've got the Eagle record label. Very, very nice, colorful labels, early labels. This is another Leeds Catlin product. Here you see some the printing down here in black, and the Eagle Talking Machine Company here in black. Here's basically the same label with that in gold. This is a pretty scarce variety. I've only seen a couple of those. Slightly different color variation. And here's another one that doesn't turn up as often. That's your black, white, and red Eagle. And with a yellow field. Also very, very nice and scarce. Then we go into Edison diamond discs, and here too I'm not really going to go through all of these. They're common for the most part, and we don't need to waste our time with that. But let's just flip through right quick and see if there's anything really worth mentioning.
You want to show that sleeve there?
I do, yeah. This is good. Okay, in this particular catalog, not so much here in the label section, but in the Edison diamond disc section, which comes after the 78s and before the cylinders. And we've got, I don't know, several hundred in this catalog as usual. But all of these came from a single collection I purchased last year, and we decided to run them all at one time because the previous owner did such a beautiful job in creating sleeves. So this is not an original Edison Diamond Disc sleeve. It's copied from one, but he made all these things by hand, and we'll show a couple of others later in the highlights reels. But they're just so well done, and he did some cutouts of labels that he glued on, where he was able to find the original title strip on an original Edison sleeve. He put that on as well. So and he also put the record numbers up here in the corner. When we graded these, we did so with pencil. So if you wanted to erase the grades and stuff, you would be able to do that. But anyway, these are just such nice sleeves, so I just figured, well, we'll just run them all at one time, tell people they're in the nice sleeves, and let them go that way.
Yeah, and there's quite a few of them too. Like, here they are on the shelf. That's nice, solid little chunk. We got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 shelves full of these interesting custom-made sleeves. So.
Yeah, and while we're talking about it, might as well just show one of these. So your Edison Diamond Disc phonographs, some of them, like your C19, C250 Sheridan model or the William and Mary Chippendale official laboratory models, they had drawers below, 2 drawers. You open the door, drawer would slide out, and the drawers had boards that were at an angle. So in order to put your sleeves in, the original Edison sleeves, the owners would have cut the corners off so that they would fit inside those drawers properly.
Yeah, and they came from the factory. The sleeves came from the factory with dotted lines.
Yeah.
So it's not like it was something that, people did out of convenience or anything. Like, Edison basically sanctioned that action.
Precisely. And so all the sleeves that were in this particular collection are intact, except for the ones that the man had put into his own Diamond Disc phonographs, and he cut the corners off. So some of them will have that, but it's not that big a deal. Usually, we do not sell records in their original sleeves, simply because usually the original sleeves are they're not rare particularly, and usually they're dirty, and we clean every record that comes through here and just don't like to put it back into a dirty sleeve. So we put most everything that we sell into the brand new disc files.
And just as a point of interest, if you are looking to get a whole bunch of vintage record sleeves that you just want to put with your records, on our website in the resource catalog, there's a section for used record sleeves, and if you pick any quantity of printed company sleeves, you'll get 78 record sleeves from the time period that are generally fully intact. They're not, like the back isn't torn off or anything. Yeah, so that is we do resell we use every part of the buffalo here, and we resell the sleeves that come with the records we've acquired.
That is correct. Tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and just flip through the basic label varieties. This is not at all exhaustive, but just for the benefit of those who have never really seen or experienced Edison Diamond Disc, let's just take the time to do that right quick. Your first Diamond Disc had a frosted label like this with shields on either side. The positioning of Edison and the catalog number and the type font and so forth changed and evolved over time. That we sell a book that will describe all of this if you're interested in I think it's called The Collector's Guide to Edison Records. But basically, you start with a frosted shield design like this, then you move to the same label variety but with a glossy background instead of the frosted. Then you move to a variety that does not have the shields at all on it, like so. Then you move to a paper label. These things were difficult to read. So they finally moved to a paper label. The problem with a paper label is that they tend to fall off relatively easily because they're actually attached to a craft paper slug underneath it, and so they release easily when they get dried out. unlike a record label on a regular 78 that's actually pressed into the shellac. You can't get those things off.
Oh, and speaking of that, if you do happen to have records, diamond disc records that you need a copy of the label, you can get our handy dandy Charles Gregory set that we have in this auction. He was a fellow who was basically fed up with having diamond discs that didn't have labels, so he got a copy or photocopied every single diamond disc that he could.
Which is pretty much all of them. So yeah, this is what a four volume set.
And plus a little index, or like a companion thing that had some labels he didn't have when he published it.
Right. And it's not just the labels. There's a lot of very good information on the Edison diamond disc. But if you are missing the label on your record, you can photocopy this and cut it out and glue it onto your record. So,
because didn't we have Charles Gregory's records?
Yeah, I did sell his records.
Yeah,
sold his whole collection a number of years ago, and he has some great stuff. Charles was a big time Edison collector. He drove all the way down here back in the 90s to buy a Edison art case phonograph from me. Okay, so once we went from the etch label, or not really etched, I guess you could say embossed, engraved. Different people use different terms. But this is the paper label. It came afterwards, the black label, relatively quickly supplanted by the white label, or at least white on the bottom. The first ones of these, as well as the black label, said Edison Recreation, and then that was changed later to Edison Record, and that label basically continued to be used throughout the end of the Edison diamond disc period, which ended in October of 1929.
As people quibble about the nomenclature of diamond disc, because that was only published on one of the sleeve varieties, right?
Yeah, diamond disc did not appear on the record label itself, but Jack keeps bringing up interesting things that we should mention. Okay, so again, for the benefit of those who've never seen one, an Edison diamond disc record is a 1/4 inch thick, so that's twice as thick as a normal 78. So these things, double as like wagon cart wheels, and kids use them for all kinds of fun stuff.
Skeet shooting targets.
Yeah, frisbees.
They are, like, as far as records go, they are virtually indestructible, which is quite a testament.
Yes, they are. They hold up very well. Obviously, quite expensive to have produced. You don't want to get the edges wet because it will swell. The core will swell and cause lamination cracks in the surface. So you want to avoid that. You can, in spite of what the literature says, you can clean them with water. You just want to don't let the edges soak in the water very long. Just wipe them down, wipe it off, and you'll be fine. And these are vertically recorded, which means that the waves in the grooves are on the bottom of the groove, which causes the stylus to move up and down, rather than on the sides of a V-shaped groove that causes the stylus to move laterally, right to left. So you cannot play an Edison diamond disc on either a turntable or a wind-up phonograph unless you have the capability of reproducing a vertical groove.
And in a facsimile, you can't play regular 78s on an Edison diamond disc machine without an adapter to do so. Many burgeoning collectors, such as myself, back in the day, I think an Edison A100 was my first wind-up machine, and bought it out of the antique store, and I asked the guy, can I play regular records with this? And he said, oh yeah, sure. And that didn't go very well. Tennessee Ernie did not survive a play on that machine. But they did make adapters that you could play regular 78s on Edison machines, and they also made adapters that you could play Edison discs on other types of phonographs too. So there was a lot of back and forth between those companies back in the day.
So we've got a couple of other Edison label varieties. This may have been the only Edison issue that had this label. and I'm not sure why.
Just because maybe they had so much text in the bottom?
Maybe, I don't know. It could be, but that's obviously that's a very unusual label. You don't see that. This is in their 57,000 German series. Edison also did a long playing record. And here's an example of one of those. So the long plays had a gold label, gold and blue. I'll just spend a moment talking about this. Your regular Edison Diamond Disc records had a 150 TPI groove pitch. So that's 150 threads per inch, which is very fine. But your long plays were 450. So you had 3 grooves on this record for every one on the previous one.
Do you recall about what LPs are?
I don't think that they are
even that fine as that.
No, that fine. These things played 24 minutes. So a 10-inch record would play 12 minutes per side. A 12-inch record played 20 minutes per side, or 40 minutes total, which is longer than a modern LP, typically. So this was amazing technology. 1926, they were able to record a record with more information on it, at least in terms of playing time, than a modern LP would have. The problem is that the reproducing technology just wasn't up to snuff, because the tracking weight of a Edison Diamond Disc reproducer was just too much, and it would chew these records up very quickly, especially if the alignment wasn't perfectly. So we do not recommend playing these on an Edison long play machine, because you run the risk of ruining the record. This one is in E+ condition. It may never have even been played on a machine. And the technology, because of the fact that the records just didn't stand up to repeated playing, was unsuccessful. And so the 10-inch variety came out with only 8 issues, the 12-inch with 6 issues. So there were only a total of 14 long-playing records that were ever produced, which is kind of a bummer for those guys who invested all that money in a new Edison long play machine. Only had 14 records to choose from. It would, however, play regular diamond discs as well, so it wasn't a total loss. This is an Edison long play sleeve. Very nice. These were specially done for the long play series. Both the 10-inch and the 12-inch sleeves had the same design.
Oh, hey, Kurt, show me the front of that again.
That's that.
It's pretty nice.
I think we've got a 12-inch Edison long play in the catalog as well. So for those of you who are interested in collecting record technology, the history of recorded sound technology, you definitely want an Edison long play example in your collection, because that represents a milestone. And then after the diamond disc, or actually at the same time as the diamond disc, but right at the end of Edison's record production, he came out with the Edison needle type records, or what we call needle cut records. So these were regular 78s, just like any other 78s being made at that time, had the nice lightning bolt label. The 10-inch had black labels like that, and then the 12 inches had gold labels, and I've got one of those in here. Pull that out right quick. So here is an example from our operatic section. This is lot number 641 by Mario Bazziola. There were only 7 of these made. Only 7 12-inch gold label Edison needle cut record issues. But they did do a fairly good number of the 10-inch.
Just one other interesting little anomaly about Edison discs as opposed to any other record and basic logic is that Edison always put his, what we consider the A side, right. He classified them as right, and then the B side would be left. And so, logic would say, well, do left to right. So I don't know, but that carried on to on diamond discs, it carried on to his lateral cut 78s.
So right,
who
right and
knows?
left. Well, right and left was the orientation on the shelf, and if you went to your dealer, the right would be on that side. So, yeah, it's kind of weird. But Edison, he marched by his own drummer. All right, so let's move on from Edison. Electrodisc. This is a record label that was produced by RCA Victor.
They're experimenting with whatever budget label would catch on.
So they did Electrodisc, they did Timely Tunes. Eventually, it was Bluebird that
Sunrise is another one.
Sunrise, yeah. So here is the electric record. These are actually not electrically recorded records. That's kind of a misnomer, probably intentional. But Black Label Electric, Blue Label Electric, those are pretty rare labels.
So despite the Batwing design, they're not Victor products.
Right, yeah. There you'll find a lot of carryover from designs from one company to another. It's lot number 539. I should probably start mentioning some lot numbers, Jack.
Yeah, keep it up.
All right, so this is no big deal. Elite, and another Elite recording, hits by Dolly Dawn, a couple of artists who had labels like that. Emerson had several different labels. Again, most of your Emerson labels are actually smaller size records, which we're not featuring in this list. Those will be sold later.
We did sell a very nice collection of Emerson, how would you describe them? Cardboard picture records?
Cardboard cutout records, yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Those were talking books. So those are your Emersons.
There's a lot of ethnic material released on Emerson, particularly in just this section alone.
Yeah, that's correct. And a lot of times your label color had to do with ethnicity. So here we have a Hebrew record with a purple label. And now we get to the later Emerson labels varieties. Here's another Hebrew or Yiddish recording using a blue label. This is more of a
vanity kind of thing.
Vanity thing, yeah. I said we don't have vanity records in here, and
it's okay.
There's one right there.
There's a little white line. It's fine.
Yeah, sometimes it's a very fuzzy line, and it's hard to really draw the line where it begins and ends. So, all right, so that takes care of Emerson.
A lot of people discount a lot of these early labels, but like even Mark, who we had working here for a long time, talked about when he first started collecting, he would discount a lot of the Brunswicks because he'd be like, there's nothing that terribly interesting on Brunswick. But even on Emerson, you have like Charlie Johnson's first record. There's some really great artists on these labels.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, in this catalog we have a Cardinal label, which a lot of people wouldn't pay much attention to. And it is Ethel Waters' first record.
Yeah, that'll
very rare record.
Later in the videos here.
All right, so here is an Empire Sapphire record. This is like the Diamond Disc. This is a vertical recording where the waves are on the bottom of the groove. Kaiser Gruß. Kaiser is misspelled. Of course, is like the German Kaiser, greetings. I bring that up because we're going to have another record coming up here that kind of relates to that. Okay, here's a later Empire label.
And was Empire a universal groove?
Not at that point, but your later Empires, these I believe are universal grooves.
Play on all phonographs. So that's where they kind of try to make it vertical and kind of lateral at the same time.
Yeah, it's kind of a in between, and it kind of works. This is an Excelsior.
Excelsior, you got to say it right.
Oh yeah, you got to say it. Yeah, you can say that, Jack.
With gusto.
So these were made by the International Record Company, IRC Pressings, and this is a slightly smaller sized, I think a little over 9 inches in diameter, but not quite 10. That one, as you saw, has the red printing for the artist and title. This has black. This is actually a 10-inch Excelsior. Another 10-inch Excelsior, this time with a red printing. And you can see how this kind of a bluish gray Here we have more of a tan gray, I guess, or maybe it's just the tan label stock that's used. Exclusive, Fairview. This is a very interesting record label. This is, you'll see this very often. Can hardly even think of another example. So instead of a paper label, this is some sort of a transfer, and you can see how it kind of peels off a little bit in spots, and then they write the title in. So again, another pretty cheap way of producing a record, save a little bit of money. This is a Columbia pressing that they've. I think that's this label that they have on here is probably on top of an actual Columbia label, just kind of painted on top of it. So interesting. And here's a famous label. It's really not all that famous, but this one was even less famous. But they turn up both blue
and this is an example of what we were talking about earlier with like the batwing stock. But so obviously this borrows from Brunswick, and this one that we have in front of us wasn't pressed like what in the late 30s, early 40s, I think.
Well, 30s.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's just interesting that they kept that design. I guess Brunswick wasn't really hurting to have it back. So.
Yeah, it was that was a pretty early Brunswick design. All right, so this is another famous record. You can hardly see it because it's faded out, but it's a paste over top. It says famous record, price $1. So this was a record to be sold in the United States, but it's pasted on top of a German pressing. Probably an ISI pressing. So that here's another one, slightly different label variety underneath. You can read the famous record, price $1, a little bit more clearly on there. Okay, here we have on the flip side, without the label. Looks like maybe someone had removed it. So that's what it would look like without it.
So information about that record label you can find in that German record label book that we've sell.
The 5-volume set by Reiner Lotz.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here we have famous Singer's record label. Again, these tend to be kind of faded out. This is an extremely rare label. This only grades V-/V+, and it's somewhat faded, but it is still a $100 minimum bid. Here we have the flip side, which has got a nasty label or label needle run on it. But that's a tough one. This is a nice faultless concert pressing, early IRC label. Federal. We only have one flexo in this particular listing. There were many different flexo labels, and you start collecting all the different varieties, you might as well just about start collecting all the different flexo records. They came in different colors, different logo varieties, just different ways of presenting the information and so forth. So we just have the one example here in this particular catalog. But flexos are really cool. People love them. They're flexible discs, as you can see, unbreakable.
Floppy disks.
Floppy disks. And very often they are translucent. This one not so much. But beautiful colors. All kinds of different colors. Sometimes even mottled colors. And they come in all different sizes as well. Fox Movie Tone, that's an ARC, American Record Corporation product from the 1930s. There's Fraud, which is a vertical label. Gala, not particularly rare, different Gala. A little later Gala. Gamut.
And one thing that we'll point out too is that, we're focusing mostly on pre-war labels, but some of the labels we have started pre-war and then went into post-war. So those are generally included in the scope of this collection. where applicable, because like, you know, that gala, for example, that we saw, that last one was probably a post-war thing, but we're going to keep it there because the company started pressing that label in the pre-war era.
That's correct. And so in the decas that we didn't look at, there are a lot of decas that were post-war as well. Figure if we were going to be doing the label started before the war, we just go ahead and carry it through towards the end. All right, so here's Gem, which was another label that RCA Victor produced in the early 1930s. Doesn't turn up terribly frequently. And a lot of these early 1930s pressings tend to fade out pretty quickly. So Gem is one of those. Brunswicks are notorious for that, having kind of faded gold on the labels. Here's General. These are most known for the Jelly Roll Morton sides.
Jelly Roll Morton's last record is on the General, or at least commercially issued 78.
So here we have General Tavern Tunes label with a Morton 7 on it. Are those records worth having, Jack?
They're pretty good. I mean, it's kind of fun to track Jelly Roll Morton's career and kind of think about where he might have gone in the swing era. That's kind of something that people also dream about, like Big Spiderbeck. Just kind of think about, you know, where he might have ended up as far as his creative aspirations and whatnot. But anyway, yeah,
All right,
General.
so here we have another General, lot number 587. Clear the gutter for Grandma's on a Tear. You know, some of this stuff is probably leans towards the party record category, which you generally don't find in auctions, but
So this one's slightly, did we just show the same two again over? Or are these different,
this is
slightly
different
different than
It's
these?
slightly different labels.
Okay.
Yeah, when you're talking about label varieties, you know, do you look at just the basic label design? Do you look at the color? Do you look at the positioning of the catalog number? Do you look at the presence of something like use Victor needles only? I mean, you can take this to any extreme that you want. The different font sizes and serif versus sans serif type. It gets very, very much in the weeds. And we don't have the time, didn't have the time to get that far into it. So we, again, picking what's a major variety or something to really pay attention to things that are just more of just whatever the typesetter happened to be feeling that morning is kind of a difficult thing to figure out. But anyway, this is how we chose to negotiate it. So your very first Gennett records were vertical, as we see here. Not a whole lot of ornamentation or anything. You'll find Jimmy Durante's first recordings on piano on labels that look like this. Here's a Gennett label. You find the red Gennett's like this by Helen Ware on violin. Those she did a pretty good number of those for Gennett, and they turn up frequently. Now we're getting into Gennett's that would be lateral. I think that's probably a lateral one. Another Helen Ware recording. And now we get into the more traditional Gennett hexagonal label. Here's a green one for Irish recording.
Some fans of record history will know that Gennett kind of stands out as having, and Star Piano, as having led the charge to make the lateral technology like, what do you call it, publicly available. Like,
well, they got a court victory allowing them to use the lateral technology for their records, and they opened it up. You know, that was opened up to the industry at that point. Up to that point, the lateral patents were owned by Columbia and Victor, and the other companies were kind of shut out, and they had to produce vertical records. But yeah, as Jack notes, it opened up. It was around 1919 or so. Here is an art tone Gennett. Gennett's came out in a lot of different colors, so those are kind of fun to collect. Here's another blue one. This is Dischi Italiani for their Italian series. Here's They went to a darker blue field on these later Gennett issues. And here's a red one. Sometimes you see something up here at 12 o'clock. I'll get to one of those here shortly. Here's a green, back to red. Gennett did a lot of vanity and special pressing kind of stuff as well. Then we get to new electrobeam Gennett. Of course, you're going to find really great stuff on these earlier recordings as well, obviously, but electrobeam Gennetts kind of have a whole aura of their own. People love seeing those things, especially in nice original sleeves. So this is the same as the new electrobeam. We see here it says new electrobeam at the top. And here on lot 605 we see Rayo Electrico. So this was for their Mexican series.
The looks like it's got a little bit different information there at the bottom too, patent date from the last one.
Yes. So this has no patent date on it at all, and this has some patent information down here. That's yeah, that's not really a patent. That's the marca registrado, or registration mark information. So this is a later Gennett label, and the green one. And from there we go to Globe. Another label with different colors, generally representing different series. Usually your red color was used for your classical and operatic series that was started by, actually started by the Gramophone Company and picked up by the Victor Talking Machine Company. And they jealously guarded that idea of the red seal. And there was a big lawsuit eventually about the use of red seals, and Victor sued a company, and there was a big thing. And there were a lot of records introduced as evidence in the trial of other records that also had red labels. The argument being, well, Victor, why didn't you sue all these companies? You know, you let them slide, so why are you now coming after us all this time later? And we actually have a couple of those records that were introduced as evidence in our collection. Eventually those are going to be coming up for auction one of these days. Neat pieces of historical sound, recorded sound history. So here we have a kind of a scarce globe variety, and one a little bit scarcer than that, with the red on buff. More globes, and a very attractive globe here. These are gray gull issues. You can just kind of look at that label and it screams gray gull. Alright, so that's our globe. Let's go to Golden, which was a California label. Some good West Coast jazz on these things. This is the Snell Highsmith Conklin Orchestra. Minimum bid $100 for lot number 619. There's Golden Crown musical phone. There was a phonograph by the same name made by the Inglewood Company. These are actually Columbia pressings. Columbia did a lot of client label work, and Golden Crown was one of them. That's a fairly typical Golden Crown issue. This is much less seen. This is a paste over Golden Crown on top of a black and silver Columbia, where they just cut out this area to show the record information below. Another very cheap way of over-labeling and selling your own record label. That's it'd be kind of embarrassing, I would think, to do that. But here they did it on a Columbia, and then here they did it on a Golden Crown label. Now, why would you do that, Jack? Look at this. So here's Here's what the label looked like, right? Golden Grand Musical Phone. They put the blue thing on top of their own label. Does that make any sense?
Doesn't make a lick
Is there
of sense.
something going on here that I'm not aware of?
No,
I don't know.
doesn't make sense.
Maybe this label was all screwed up on the top and they just figure, oh, I'll put that thing on top of it and let it go. I don't know. All right, here's Golden Dawn's. Golden Dawn, I think this is the only issue of this.
Because Golden Dawn was like a production of some
Yeah, it
kind.
was a show. And so you see the number S1. Technically, this probably shouldn't belong in our label collection. Again, this is more of a
lobby promo thing.
Yeah, one-off sort of thing. But somehow it wound up here, so you get to bid on it. Gospel Herald, not a terribly common record. Gospel Trumpet Company. Gospel Trumpet records were sold or produced by both Columbia and Gennett. So that's a Columbia issue. Looks very much like a Columbia Vivatonal label. And here is a Gennett issue. And there is a Gospel Trumpet sleeve.
Don't see that every day.
No, you don't. Here.
Yeah, it's got a tear in the sleeve, but good luck finding another one.
Okay, the other side of the sleeve is blank. I was going to see if it had anything on it. So yeah, it does have the tear, but yeah, that is a tough sleeve to find for you, those of you guys who collect these sorts of things. Now, next up is Gray Gull, and Gray Gull had a lot of different label styles and colors and so forth. So your very first Gray Gulls were actually vertical records, and vertical Gray Gulls are super rare. I mean, they are as rare as gull's teeth, basically, Jack, in case you were wondering.
Yeah, they do. These vertical ones, I was surprised by the minimum bids on these. They are pretty high.
Yeah, this is $100, but this one is in E- condition as well. I mean, how often do you even see an E- regular Gray Gull?
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
They are pretty usually wiped out. But so this is a Gray Gull vertical. You'll see, maybe you can see it says 2-in-1 Hill and Dale. Hill and Dale was the terminology used back then to describe a vertical record, because your stylus is going over hills and dales as it traverses a groove. 2-in-1 means that you get 2 songs on one side. So that's kind of cool.
Are they separate? They're not separate tracks, are they?
No, doesn't look like they're separate tracks. For instance, on this side we have Chili Bean, sung by Billy Murray, and there's a typical Tipperary over here, also sung by Billy Murray.
So that's just another interesting little thing that's included in this section, is that we have some very, very hard to find Billy Murray records, and of course there's a lot of Murray collectors out there. So
yeah, that record, if you're a Murray collector, you're going to have to really pony up for this. So this side has Mandy by Irving Berlin, sung by Mel Eastman, and After You Get What You Want, You Don't Want It, also sung or written by Irving Berlin. So here are a couple of very rare Berlin items. Mandy, of course, is a fairly easy to find title by Irving Berlin, but not the second one. So somebody's going to want that. Now here's another vertical Gray Gull with a different color scheme. Also a 2-in-1 Hill and Dale pressing.
yeah, it's the Liberty Bell March on that one. So all the Monty Python collectors are going to be ponying up for that one.
Yeah, that's right. Here's lot number 629. So now we've gone to lateral. You can see it says lateral here. It looks like you only got one song per side on that record. Here we go.
That's back to 2-in-1 there.
2-in-1 Hill and Dale. All right. These were not cheap records. This is $1. $1 back in that period of time was...
it's like half your week's wages there.
So here now we go to lateral again with the Boston, USA indication. And you'll find all of these described in the catalog. And if you send us an email, we'll be happy to drop our PDF label variety file to you that shows them all in outline form, and it's a lot easier to kind of wrap your minds around what's going on here.
I think we still have the Arley CD available, don't we?
We have the Arley CD, which has all the label images, or a great number of them anyway. So here's this particular label variety in black and gold. Now we move to a different variety with the rings around it.
Yeah, a lot of the histories of these obscure companies that we've been talking about have been outlined by Alan Sutton in various publications that he's made. Most recently, the American Record Companies and Producers book, which is just excellent, and we've sold out of those very quickly.
Yeah, it's out of print.
But we've got the American Label Directory in this catalog in the back with our books.
We'll talk about that here in a minute. Here's a gray gull, brown wax. Otherwise, Jack will be here all day. So Gray Gull did start producing records on colored shellac. You'll see it on their Madison label and so forth. Another different variety that we've gone to here. Blue, red, kind of a rose color on brown wax. This is a fairly unusual Gray Gull label. You don't see this very often. And finally we get to that, and I believe that that's going to wrap up this particular section of labels. So what do we have next, Jack? Those were in the 600 series of lot numbers in Record Auction 72. So we are going to move from there into, okay, another very interesting, perhaps the most interesting section of the catalog this time, which is our Durium section. Now we're going to have a hit of the week run in this catalog.
Which
Here's
is
an example of that.
It's a nice run too. It's got quite a few.
Yeah, we got some nice hit of the weeks. None of them that are really super rare, but hit of the weeks are great records. These are flexible records from the early 1930s. They sold on the newsstands for 15 cents a piece, and one-sided records. And they don't look like they'd sound very good, but they actually sound great, and were very, very successful when they first were being produced. That was in the Depression, and you could buy records for 15 cents, which is cheaper than you can get them from anybody else. And there was a different hit of the week record issue on your newsstands each week.
Interesting thing about that one that Kurt just showed is that that's a Duke Ellington record. They made two of those, St. You Sinners and St. James Infirmary, with Duke Ellington's manager Irving Mills on the vocal. Pretty common, but very desirable hit of the week issue. It's, fun. It's a fun record.
Yeah, but not terribly rare. Okay, so the Durium Company, which made hit of the weeks, in spite of the fact that they were pretty successful until they ran into some money trouble later on, having to do largely with the payment of royalties. They did a whole lot of custom pressing. That was perhaps, I don't know if it was equally important, but it was certainly a major part of their business, which was kind of unusual. Most of your companies didn't really focus on that. They kind of had either one focus or another. Columbia probably did the best in terms of major labels and doing a lot of private and vanity kind of stuff. Victor didn't do as much of it. But Durium was really set up for that because of the way that they were making these records. Instead of stamping a single record on a press, they would basically stamp these things in big sheet-fed rolls of paper. So you'd have several records across, and then they would just be cut out. And so they had a much more efficient and economical way of producing their recordings, and so therefore they could offer them at lower prices. And they come in all different sizes. They're always single-sided. You always have the Durium coating on one side on top of a cardstock, which very often is printed with something on the back. Not always. This is a little Italian, or I guess this one is French. This is a little French cigarette card. So you would buy a pack of cigarettes and you get one of these, kind of like baseball cards here in the United States.
What kind of material is on that cigarette card?
This is just a song.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, on these things usually they're just tunes of one sort or another.
We do. For those interested, we do plan to play some of these really obscure things on the Bit Request show, so you can hear them.
So they came in all different sizes. They were very often square. They were very often round. That one is about as small as they get, but these little 4-inch size records are very common and turn up frequently. You don't see them as much in piles of 78s, 10-inch 78s, but you oftentimes run across them in piles of kitty records and 45s and stuff. So that's a Durium Junior, which was a children's issue. Here's With the Speaker's Compliments. This is for the Thomas Cook & Son Travel Agency. And according to the label or the printing on the back, if this message doesn't interest you, then write to the speaker for other suggestions. We got something that you're going to be glomming onto. So this particular one, I believe, advertises an excursion to Germany.
Yeah, I'd love to go to Germany in the early 1930s. That would be just great.
So here we have The Silent Servant. This is all about refrigerators. Okay, refrigerator advertising. 100 years old. What was 100 years old, Jack? Well, I'll tell you, since you don't know. It was, of course, Criddle's.
Oh, yeah, why didn't I think of that?
Old-fashioned black treacle.
Treacle.
Do you know what treacle is?
Well, if I happen to listen to that record, I guess I would get the answer, wouldn't I?
Well, you will hear of treacle if you were to read the Harry Potter books. It talks about treacle. Treacle is what we would know as blackstrap molasses here in the U.S., like Steen's Blue Ribbon Syrup in Abbeville, Louisiana, where my great-grandfather built the first power plant in that town. Good stuff. Get a little of that molasses or treacle. You mix a little butter in it and you heat that up. And then you take your bread and toast that. And you're good to go.
It's not quite lunchtime, Kurt. You make me really hungry.
Yeah, so anyway, we got a whole series of these things. We're going to go look at all of them. Here's a slightly larger one.
Oh, it's a good thing you didn't break it because
yeah.
it's flexible.
Oh, no. Oh. Here's Madeline Carroll speaking. She was a performer, an actress, and she's speaking on behalf of Papworth, a sanatorium for tuberculosis patients. Papworth is still a hospital to this day. Boots the Chemists. Chemists are English pharmacies, basically. Here's another Criddle's record with, we see both the treacle and Criddle's Finest Golden Syrup.
So we get a label variety even on the canning.
That's right. All right, and what do we have here? Lord Hallett A. for Governess's Benevolent Institution.
That one's glued to the back of a 45, looks like.
Yeah. This is Lord Baden-Powell. The Chief Scout, originator of the Boy Scouts, speaking about how scouting grew. It's going to be of interest to someone. Stainless Stephen, Aircraft Products Incorporated or Limited, and so forth. A bunch of different things. Content, Prize Singing Canary. Here's a series by Julian Huxley on zoo animals. These were sold as a set, and so we've got a set of these available.
They're a hoot.
Uh-huh. Yes. Now this is a hoot. This is certainly one of the rarest records I've ever owned. Now, how many of those hit of the week labels have you seen, Jack?
One.
And there you go. Volume 1, number 4. So one would presume that numbers 1 through 3 exist somewhere, but this is the only example of this I've ever seen. This is, what is that, about a 9-inch disc. And back in your own backyard, it plays well. It looks pretty rough. We'll play this on a bit of request show. You've got some edge damage here, but it doesn't get into the playing area. This particular hit of the week has been coated with looks like a shellac substance or lacquer or something on the back, which actually has kept this disc flat over the years. So that's kind of interesting, because really I believe what causes the curl in your hit of the weeks is that the cardboard absorbs moisture from the air and or dries out, maybe is more likely what's going on, and it causes that disc to curl. By coating one side with something so that the moisture cannot impact it, it causes your record to remain flat. So this was experimental. This was produced before the hit of the week issues that we've become familiar with. The matrix number of this is X1, and that is a significant record and has a $250 minimum bid on it. Okay, here we have records that you may have seen around. They're not terribly rare. Durium Jr., College Humor Trio, Notre Dame Victory March. This is certainly probably the most common of all of the small Durium products. The Great American Value for 1932. Be sure to play this record today. Neat thing about Duriums is you could actually mail them just like that. Just slap a label on it and throw it in the mail. Because they could get, kind of kicked around a little bit and still play very well.
I wish that these were in reference to Fords, but these are in reference to Chevrolets.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Oh well.
Here we have Energetic, which is in reference to shoes. Your Duriums actually gained a pretty good foothold in Europe, not only in the UK. Here is an Italian Durium product that's pretty late. This is from 1950. This is Pope Pius XII and his benediction.
Wow. That certainly looks like it could have been from the 30s. It looks like it's the exact same material and everything.
Yeah.
It's got a spindle hole grommet there.
Grommet to hold it onto your postcard, which again you can pop in the mail, and your recipient can play that papal greeting. How about that?
It's a paper papal greeting.
That's right. Here's another cigarette card, the Talkie cigarette card. This is a little bit larger than that first one we started out with. It's got a little damage on it.
Not much bigger.
Actually, it looks like it's been in a fire, but it can still be played. How about that? This is interesting. This is another very, very rare Durium record. It's a little tight in the sleeve. We're going to play this on the Bit of Request show. So that's an 8-inch record. No information on it on either side. But this is Vaughn DeLeath singing Am I Blue? And the number on this is 1016. Now your very first hit of the week issue is 1019, and that's a demonstration record, and that's a pretty scarce disc. And certainly one to be looking to pick up if you can find it. Nobody really knows anything about what was 10 or 1000 or 1001 whenever they started up through 1018. Well, this has matrix number 1016, so this is very likely in that run. I don't know of any other examples in that run. Another experimental issue. So very, very rare. $250 minimum bid on that. We've got some Vaughn DeLeath collectors out there who will probably be gunning for it. Here we have a Merry Christmas, Silent Night label on that one. That's kind of cool. To all parents, an important message. Ooh, I wonder what that's all about. Well, I'm not a parent, so I can just keep on going. Here's Westinghouse, Frigidaire. Here's a nice little set. This is a set of Durium Kitty Records, Old King Cole's Party, Mother Goose songs, recorded by Frank Luther. So here we have the little album. It's got 6 records in it.
Oh, it's so cute.
2 per pocket. Here we go. Durium Mother Goose. Isn't that nice?
That is so nice.
And each one of them has generally three little nursery rhymes. So here we have Little Bo Peep, Jack and Jill, and Old King Cole, all on one 4-inch Durium record. How about that? Now that's some value for your money right there, buddy. Minimum on that bid on that is a mere $50 for 6 records and the album.
Wow.
In nice shape too. Okay. Tell your friends and neighbors all you can get for $1. Wow. Wrigley's Merton Marge, that was a radio show. Announcing Greg recorded dictation. I don't even know what the next one is. I haven't really called off any lot numbers. Guys, these are in the 800 lot number block in your catalog. So go to your catalog. Go to your Nauck's Vintage Records, auction number 72 catalog. And if you don't happen to have a copy of this, go to 78rpm.com. And you can download the PDF file, go straight to what we're talking about, follow along, print it out. More importantly, submit bids. Auction closes October 29th. Okay. You know, we're spending a lot of time on this, but where have you ever seen such an interesting assemblage of Durium records?
Nowhere.
Right? I mean, there's stuff in here I guarantee you'll never ever see it anywhere else, unless you happen to see it in a collection of the guy that winds up buying this stuff.
Yeah, that is a thing. We are offering this whole run as a set. If somebody wishes to bid on the entire collection of these Durium custom pressings, you can do so.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Here's another very common Durium promo issue. Important information. Be sure to play this record today. Play it today, Jack, not tomorrow.
Well,
Not
what
yesterday.
are we waiting for?
Today, play this record. Okay, now here's something that's really cool. This is one of the most interesting of the Durium records. Durium recorded a number of personalities and historical figures. This was Amelia Earhart, as picked up in New York by Silvertone from a May 22nd, 1932 London broadcast. And here on the back we see high spots of the first woman solo transatlantic flight, Amelia Earhart. And this went with this particular book. Oh, what's this? Oh, there's a card in there. Okay. Went with this book for the fun of it by Amelia Earhart. Okay. There we go. Thought there was a picture of her in here. Maybe there's not. Okay. The record would have been right inside this little sleeve, glued to the back. So this is a one lot.
Let's see the front cover of the book too.
You get the book and the record. So let's just put that back together here.
Yeah, it's a very cool item.
Record, Jack, you want this in the book or you want it separate?
It'll be separate.
Okay, so we'll put the book away. All right, we'll be playing that on the Bitter Request Show. Mark loves to talk about Amelia Earhart, so...
Yeah, well, for the fun of it.
Yeah, just for the fun of it. Another little cigarette card. This one is in much nicer shape with its little original sleeve. Doesn't say anything on it, but there you go. Okay, what do we have here? Oh, Jack, look at this. This is exciting. Here is a substitute for and relief from the present discriminatory system of taxation in Iowa.
Oh.
And I know that's something that we've all been concerned about. So this is your solution to that perennial problem, Iowa taxation. Jack and I actually did both just file our own and argue our own tax protests within the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it was great.
Successfully, I might add. Okay, here is the language phone method by Funkin' Wagnalls, a miniature sample. If you want to learn a foreign language, we would suggest you use Funkin' Wagnalls system. Ted Husing tells us tale of a shirt. Oh, here we go. When the white azaleas start blooming, compliments of Pontiac. The economy straight 8. I've got a straight 8, Jack, but mine's Buick.
I've got a Ford that's half of that.
Yeah, well, it'll grow up one of these days.
Yeah.
The secret of beauty. Message to the young folks from Uncle Tom on Durium Jr. Oh, look at that. So here we have a message for the young folks from Uncle Tom. I think this is telling them to get their parents to buy their records. And then these are the records they're supposed to get their parents to buy. Durium Jr. for the young folks. Basically the same sort of thing that we saw earlier in the Old King Cole album, but these are done by Harry Hemsley, if I'm not mistaken, with an English accent. You wouldn't want to play these for your American children. They'd probably freak out.
You're like, what's wrong with that man?
Yeah, what's going on with him? All right, songs of BP Plus, British Petroleum, announcing Durium language. Yeah, world favorite, Kazbek, Caucasian Dance by the Café Colette Orchestra. World favorites. There's a series of those of various international type selections.
And so these are, so we talked about that, we had American ones and then they were unpopular in Europe, but after a certain point in the 30s, they just went to Europe exclusively.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot more information on Durium in these records in particular in the catalog. We don't have time to cover all that here. So these world favorites were done on behalf of the Aircraft Shock-Proof Watches and Double Life 3-hole blades, 15 blades for...
£5?
For 1 shilling.
For 1 shilling?
I believe.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So the finest blade on the market, irrespective of price, a gift included with every package. Oh, how nice. Maybe you get a Durium record. By the Aircraft Products Company.
It's like an early version of a Happy Meal.
All right. Okay, so what do we have here? Sonny Jim's Force record. How about that? And these have different pictures on the back. All right, there you go. The force behind that. There's force behind that. Sonny Jim pulls with force, with a force team. Force builds iron muscles and healthy bodies. If you are on the force side, you're on the winning side. All right, so...
that must have been George Lucas's inspiration.
So that's Force, the famous malted wheat flake food. Yep. All right, some more different ones of those. All right. Now, to wrap up the Durium section here, I think, here's a couple more over there. I think they may have gotten out of order, Jack. Sorry about that.
Oh, no.
You'll have to figure that one out. Okay, so this is really cool. So if you look in Alan Sutton's book that Jack referenced earlier, talking about Alan Sutton's American record companies and what?
And producers?
And producers, RCAP, yeah. If you look in that book and turn to the Durium entry, you'll see a lot of information about Durium records in general. And it mentions in there how the originators, the scientists who came up with Durium, that particular formulation in this process, who continued to work on behalf of the company, were a little bit upset that they weren't getting what they felt to be proper recompense for their efforts. And so, in probably not the wisest move, they went to Victor, offering to sell them Durium's trade secrets. That didn't go over real well, and these guys were summarily dismissed. This next lot number 916, I don't know if it has to do with that or not, but I would suggest that it very likely does, because I don't know of any other real logical explanation to have a record such as this. This is a recording by McKinney's Cotton Pickers from an original metal part on a Durium pressing. Now, there's no way that the Durium production team walked into Victor's factory with all of their presses and said, here, grab us a thing and let us show you what one would look like. No. The stamper would have had to go from RCA to Durium for this to happen. So how was it that RCA would have allowed a stamper out of their possession to go to Durium? Maybe Durium came to Victor and said, hey, you guys, we can do these things. Are you interested in maybe doing it? And they said, well, maybe. And here, go make a Victor record for us. Let's see what it looks like. Test it out. That's possible. But given the fact that these guys went to the Victor company from Durium, offering to sell them their trade secrets, I think seems to be a logical assumption that maybe this record had to do with that. And so maybe Victor gave them a stamper and said, bring us a sample back or something. Who knows? Who knows?
Because we do know that Victor tried... We do have evidence that Victor tried some other flexible technology just to try it out. But, yeah, this is Durium creme de la creme.
So I don't know what these numbers represent on the back. 361 12/5. Is that a date? Could that be December the 5th? I don't know. I have no idea what this is. This particular recording, however, actually, does it have the date on it?
Yeah, I think so. It's 1928.
Looks like possibly November 12th, 28. It does say 12-28. But this is, what's the title? Is this Shimmy Shawabble?
Mm-hmm.
So this is Shimmy Shawabble by McKinney's Cotton Pickers.
Yeah, it was issued, so this is same as your Victor scroll, but it's really cool.
It's very cool, and it sounds very good. This is actually grading E-. Got a couple of small lamination cracks that don't affect the play. We've got it bundled to a piece of cardboard just because I don't want somebody inadvertently creasing this record as they're pulling it off the shelf or something. But that's got a $250 minimum bid on it. And very, very cool record. And that's what we like around here, Jack. We like the cool stuff. We like the interesting stuff. The stuff that you're not going to find other places. It's always kind of been a driving force behind Nauck's Vintage Records. Yeah, we sell jazz and we sell blues and we sell opera and we sell kiddie records. But we love, 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 love this early interesting stuff. Okay, so let's, I think that wraps up our Duriums. And we are going to go to the next section, at least the next section we're going to discuss, which are a handful of program transcriptions. So RCA Victor made a series of records in the 1930s that played at 33 RPM. Those were really the first publicly commercially sold 33 RPM discs, 33 1/3 to be exact. And they call them program transcriptions. So you see here's the label that says program transcription across it. Now transcription was actually a term that was used for radio broadcast material. They took that term and kind of adopted it for use on these commercially sold Victor pressings.
By the way, what lot number is this again?
This is lot number 919. So if you turn to the appropriate page in your catalog, you will see the longer playing, quote, 78s. So this is a 78 by look and feel, but it actually does play at 33 RPM. This is a label variety that most people have not seen before because this is the way they looked when they were issued in Canada. So here we have a purple label with gold print. Very attractive record. And this is a particularly neat one by Duke Ellington, a tune that I don't know if Ellington ever recorded this in any other format, in any other way. It is a tune that's you may never even heard it. It's called Moon Indigo. Have you ever heard Moon Indigo, Jack?
Well, I've certainly heard of Mood Indigo.
Well, this is obviously not Mood Indigo.
This is obviously a
this
different
says
song.
here Moon Indigo on it.
Obviously different.
And so if you want to hear Moon Indigo, you will have to buy this record because I don't know that you're going to find it anywhere else. But along with that, you'll also get Hot and Bothered and Creole Love Call because being a long-playing record, we can shove 3 tunes on one side. And that's pretty neat, right? Because you're going to get your money's worth on that record, Jack. A long-playing record. Now,
Wow.
answer this question. We've come up with several interesting questions already in this broadcast reel. Answer this question. Why would a company produce long-playing records and only utilize one side of the disc? I mean, that's kind of like buying a brand new pair of really nice dress shoes and spats to go out on the town and then cutting your other foot off. What's the point? I don't get it. But for whatever reason,
Peg legs are in.
RCA Victor decided that it would be a good idea to produce some of their long-playing program transcriptions as single-sided discs. So,
Well, when they were doing the Red Seals, weren't they kind of like arguing like, well, it's just such a big deal that,
that's right.
it's just
yeah.
one side, but it's just so
Yeah,
important.
that was kind of the snooty approach, and maybe that's the same thing here. But I, as a record-buying consumer, would not be impressed.
We do pack a lot of value in the discs that we produce.
Yes, we do. You get 15 hours on one side only because we can't print on the other side.
Only because CDs can't flip over in CD player very much.
Only because Jack, Mark, and I couldn't stand up to a 30-hour show. All right, so here we have what the program transcriptions would have looked like here in the United States. So you have, instead of the purple, gold on purple, we have black on gold. And not all program transcriptions were single-sided. Some were actually two-sided, so you really got your money's worth on those. Some of this stuff was recorded specifically for the record. Some of this stuff was dubbed from 78s, which again is not terribly impressive. You want some good original material, don't you, Jack?
Oh, of course.
Wouldn't you like
But and wasn't there a thing about the long playing Victors that they created accidental stereo?
Well, there
Using
is, and that
using different takes of whatever microphones were in the studio.
and actually I meant to check to see if this might have been one of those issues because those are the Duke Ellington sides, or a couple of Duke Ellington sides. And that was something that was first noticed by Brad Kay in Venice, California years ago, who happened to be playing through it, and he put one on, he was listening to it, or he put another one on, and he said, there's just something about that record, it doesn't really sound the way it should. And he got the other one, and he played them back and forth. It was the same, but it was not quite the same. And he noticed that I guess one of them had, what is it? Is it an R underneath the take number?
Well, it was something like, because R generally denotes like a re-recording or a dub.
Yeah,
But it was something like that. Maybe an A for alternate or something like that.
Yeah, I don't recall now.
Brad, let us know.
Well, I've got it back here in the stacks. In fact, I've got a copy of each of those. One of them as a regular issue, and one of them as a test pressing, which could give us that stereo. And there's some debate as to whether or not it's just an effect. Basically, the bottom line is what was going on is they would oftentimes feed more than one cutting machine in a recording session. So if you had a screw up with something, on this one over here, you still had a good take that you could use. You didn't have all your eggs in one basket. Typically, that would have been fed off of one microphone, going to 2 different lines, 2 different lathes. But there were some times when they were feeding off of 2 separate microphones. So if you can find a copy from each of those turntables, if they actually pressed up copies and you can get a copy of each one, then you would have stereo before stereo really existed, or even people, understood what that concept would have been. So it's unintentional stereo, and there have been a number of pairings like that have come up over the years, and I think they've been released on CD as well. So anyway, getting back to the topic at hand, here is a 10-inch program transcription. Your US 12-inch transcriptions had a silver label.
The Canadian ones were also silver too.
And you would also find gold on 12-inch as well. But the silver was used for their classical, more serious type music. These also were sold in regular 12-inch album sets. And you'll note those on an album, because on the spine it will have an L denoting long play. And here Jack is handing me an example of that. Yeah.
Like lot number 940.
So here we have Beethoven number 3. Go ahead and grab the records for this. And here we have on the, I don't know if you can see that, Jack's over at the shelves, but can we see that, Jack?
Yep.
Okay, so it says LM. So it's an M series, but the L denotes that it is a long playing issue. So here you have Symphony number 3, the Eroica Symphony by Beethoven, as a 3-record long playing set that goes with that album. So I think we may have
We've got
more
like
than
four that come with the albums, but I think this lot is also considered a set, but we just don't have a binder. But it does have those original sleeves, which are really cool.
All right, so that'll take care of your longer playing section. Now we're going to go into picture records, if I'm not mistaken. So let's see what we've got there. We've got Vogues. As usual, we have Vogues, we have Victors. This is the special Vogue in the current auction. This is the 12-inch Trip to Slumberland children's record, lot number 981. All right, part 1 and part 2. All right, nice record. The Vogue pressing process was always fraught with problems. They had difficult times, which is why you see so many Vogues that say Vogue Second or Vogue Reject.
Some Vogues are rogue.
And this one has a little bit of an edge issue, which I think is probably inherent in the pressing from the beginning, where you have a little bit of the paper that kind of sticks out from the lamination on top. That's kind of what you get with Vogues sometimes. But and I think the 12-inch probably were even more problematic than the 10s. But that's a rare record. That's a $500 minimum bid. Okay, what else do we have in the way of picture records? We have this set, which is the RCA Victor Winnie the Pooh album. So here we have the album.
One of Mark's very favorite lots.
Mm-hmm. And we have 3 records that go inside it with the same design that we just saw on the album.
So cute.
Mm-hmm. So those are highly desirable. This was also issued as a regular black shellac set, but the picture records are especially desirable. I don't recall if we sold this and bought it again from maybe the estate of the person that purchased it originally, or if maybe this was an unsold that's going back through. But we have sold this in the past, I know that, this particular set. These were recorded in 1932. They're in really nice shape, and the minimum bid for this series, the entire set, 3 records and the album, is $750. So.
And it's hard to imagine being a high-rolling little kid back in 1932 that your parents could pony up and buy that.
Yeah, well, they were out there. There were some parents that did pretty well in the Depression. Now, this is actually not in our picture record section, but I'm going to go ahead and do it now since it is a picture record. This is actually in our Third Reich section. This is lot number 1171 in the ethnic and foreign category. So here we have a recording on the, what does it say, reflection, Nationaler Schallplattendienst. So that would be the company that issued this. We have a picture of Hitler on this side, and some various shots of Hitler rallies on the flip side. Obviously, that is going to have some real interest to individuals who collect World War II related recordings and memorabilia. That you'll see a picture of that actually on the inside cover of our auction catalog. And there are people out there who would say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're putting that in your auction. What kind of a monster are you?" You know.
We had some feedback about who's the English guy?
English. Oh yeah, that guy. I forget what his name was.
Yeah, it was like, was it Mosher or something like that?
I don't
Mosley.
know. Oh, Mosley. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean it's a
It's history, guys.
it's a
Get
very
over it. Okay?
very rare document for sure.
We.
However unfortunate.
This is what it is. Okay. This is what was recorded back in the day, and we sell records. From all eras. We sell historical things. We sell music that to some people is objectionable. To other people, it's not. We're not making that judgment call. So, if you're interested on the record, bid on it. If you're not, turn the page and just move on. We do have a couple more recordings from that same category of Third Reich material. Here's one on the Gloria label with a $300 minimum bid. And one on HMV, Gramophone Company Pressing, for $100. So that covers, I think that covers label 1 for us, and from there we will bounce into our artist categories or genre categories, starting with operatic and classical. So let's take a break here, and we'll come right back.